minutes to let everyone take a seat, and then we'll get started.
Larry, make this
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all so very much for taking time out of your day to be here with us. Coming from an individual that is a one-person department, I understand that sometimes we all have 18 different places that we need to be at once. So I thank you very much for making this a priority today to be here with us. That means that we have done our job up to this point and sparked some interest in the community and in the region about this project that we've been working on. And as I look across the room, I see a cross-sectional representation of different partners and agencies across the region, which was the point of this today, was to be able to answer questions, provide information. I know that for myself, I have been breathing this project since I started in this position in August of 2022. And I know how much love that I have for what we're doing, and we wanted to be able to just provide a little snippet of that information to you all today so that you can feel the excitement and the joy that we have with bringing this project here to Dickinson County. First, I just want to thank everyone for being here. Like I said, I see some representatives. I see Tyler from Senator Pillion's office, so thank you for being here. I see representatives from the Dickinson County Board of Supervisors, from Ballot Health, from Dickinson County Behavioral Health Services, from the school system. Dickinson County Superintendent Ms. Robinson is here. I see folks from the community, from DSS, from our drug court programs, from our Southwest Virginia Regional Jail Authority. I see folks from Workforce Development. And then we have a lot of community members here who are just interested in hearing about what we're doing. One of the presentations that we have today is the Sheriff of Letcher County, is that correct? So I appreciate Sheriff Fleming for being here today, as well as some of our other law enforcement officers in the area, so that you're able to hear his story of how ARC has impacted what he does in Eastern Kentucky. As I said, I started this role in August of 2022. And as a Dickinson County native, I left Dickinson County for almost 20 years. My husband was in the Marine Corps, and we traveled the country and lived in various places. So for me, I am a clinical social worker, and to be able to come back to Dickinson County to work on an economic development project that brings hope to people's lives is unlike anything I ever dreamed that I could work on. So we're very thankful for everyone being here. Last but not least, I do want to also thank our folks from Addiction Recovery Care who are here. If you all could just raise your hand and show everybody who you are, because at some point today, I hope that you're able to speak with these folks. Many of them will be on the stage talking to you. And we also have our developer, Greg May, is here, County Administrator Larry Barton. I do have to say, though, there is one individual that is here today that I'm most impressed with, because 12 hours ago, he was wearing a tuxedo at the Governor Beshear's inaugural ball in Kentucky. So John Wilson, thank you for making the extra effort to be here with us today. So I'm a little jealous. He got to see Tyler Childers. So So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and get started. If I could ask our gentleman in the back to play this video that ARC has put together about our project at Red Onion, I would really appreciate it.
The conversation started almost 3 years ago, and it's been really a labor of love project since then to work out all the nuances and all of the different iterations of plans to be able to get us to where we are today. I think that this project is what we want to call the tip of the spear for change in Dickinson County and southwestern Virginia. We're looking forward to having an option for folks to be able to get treatment that is a transformational kind of treatment. We're providing a space for 112 men to live for 12 months, up to 12 months if they choose, while they go through treatment. I don't know that there's anything better that we could be doing as far as an economic development project here than to give those folks an opportunity to be able to have a better future, to go back into the workforce, to be tax-paying citizens.
What we're building here is kind of an experimental model, but we're building like a campus. And so there'll be all sorts of things going on, and they'll have a lot of room outside to do recreation, much like some of our other facilities. These folks have been open-armed and have worked very hard to make this project happen. And it's always exciting when you have partners that's got the same excitement that you are to try to help the people over here.
So special thanks to Addiction Recovery Care's marketing team for putting together this video of the site. I may be a little biased, but I do think that we have one of the most beautiful sites in the Commonwealth, especially for a treatment facility. And as you can see from the video, we are currently under construction. The project itself, originally for a stick-built structure, the cost was going to be over $12 million. So at one point, we thought that the project was a bust, that there was no way that we were going to actually be able to do this. However, our developer, Greg May, brought this idea of a modular concept to us, which I think is going to be a concept that is going to be very prevalent in the future as we're looking at building new structures throughout the Commonwealth, whether it be for commercial or residential. But we were able to bring the cost down of the building from over $12 million to around $4.5 million, which made this a project that was feasible to be as a local economic development project. And throughout this whole process, you know, we have many different funders that have came to the table and that are supporting this. One of the largest, is VCTA, the Virginia Coalfield Economic Development Authority, and I did see Jean here from VCTA today, so thank you for being here. VCTA has been a wonderful partner of ours for funding. We also have funding from the Virginia Small Business Finance Authority. We have funding from the RAFA Foundation. We have Mark here from the RAFA Foundation. That organization partnered with the formerly Jean Ann Foundation, and I believe now they've changed their name to the Jean and Ann Worrell Foundation, partnered along with the RAFA Foundation for a 7th dormitory building, which we were able to increase our capacity at that point from 96 beds to 112 beds. In addition, we have various funding that is coming from coal severance, whether it be allocated directly for the utilities or the road or economic development. So we've pieced together a lot of different funding sources. The final piece of this funding did come from the Opioid Abatement Authority, which is the county received a direct allocation, and each of the counties in the state received this allocation of funding from that authority to be used in a manner that they so chose, as long as it was for opioid abatement. And fortunately, the Board of Supervisors did vote to approve $250,000 to be used towards this project, as we feel that currently this is one of the big projects that we have that we could use those fundings for. So a lot of different partners have come to the table for that. But at this time, what I'd like to do is invite Greg May and Larry Barton to the stage. who'd like to share an exciting announcement with you today, and then we'll move along with our presentation. I will just.
Thank you, Dana. Appreciate all the information and things that you shared with us this morning. I'd like to again echo what Dana said. We appreciate everyone taking the time out of their schedules today to come out and have this informational meeting with us to learn more about what we're doing in Dickinson County and the opportunities it's going to provide not only for Dickinson County citizens, but for citizens all across the Commonwealth. Of course, Greg May's with me here, and of course we want to get up and share something this morning. As Dana said, you know, she's been here and worked on this since she's been here. I've been here for 3 years. On December 21st, I'm at my 3-year anniversary with the county. And at that time, I think Freddie and Mark had went down and visited with you, Greg, visit down at the location at Millard. And they were in conversation and on this men's facility that we're looking at here. And, you know, I've worked this ever since I've been here for the 3 years as well. It started, you know, a little bit before my time. And as Dana said, it's been hot, it's been cold, but right now everything's moving. We're very excited. We're excited about the jobs and the opportunity that it's bringing here, as well as the help for our citizens and the other citizens who are battling these opioid addictions that they have. But on another note here, as we look, recently the school divisions had worked with us and had given us the former Irvington Elementary School property. And, you know, the same meeting we accepted it, we sent that to the IDA, and the IDA had been working a couple different options on that. But Greg, you want to share what we're doing on that?
So we're pleased with the experience we've had in Eastern Kentucky and throughout Kentucky. It's taken these school facilities and turning them into recovery centers. We're pleased to announce we have entered into an agreement, Southwest Properties. We've entered an agreement with the IDEA board that beginning sometime in 24, we'll be converting the school into a probably 80 to 120 bed women's facility. So we're really pleased with that because what we found out, I'll tell a real quick story, just to comment why we think the women's facility is well deserved, the same as the men's facility. So when I did my first facility at Miller, it was a men's facility, and we worked pretty hard at it for a while. And we were sitting at the dinner table one night, my wife said, "Okay, I've heard all about this men's facility, what we're doing for the women." And so we immediately started working on a women's facility in Eastern Kentucky, and we want to take the model that we've used over there and been successful at and bring it to Southwest Virginia. So we're pleased to announce this year, sometime this year, we'll start doing the rebuild and refurbishing and reconstructing of the school to make a first-class women's facility in Dickinson County.
We're excited, Greg. So, thank you all.
So many of the questions that we've been asked over the past year after we made the announcement for this project is, what about the women? So we have been working, as they said, on a couple different plans for this school, but at the end of the day, it was decided that there was no better place in Dickinson County than to bring a women's facility, to be able to bring jobs to the Nora community and hopes of revitalizing that area. So we're truly excited about this partnership. I'm excited to see what will come, and Greg has done some transformational work in these schools in Eastern Kentucky, so I'm really eager to see how he's able to utilize this school for a women's facility. So we're truly grateful, Greg, and thank you for the partnership. All right. So without further ado, I'd like to get Addiction Recovery Care up to the stage, and we'll start with Miss Vanessa Keaton. And Vanessa is the Vice President of Marketing for Addiction Recovery Care, and I think throughout her presentation, she'll share a little bit about her story. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. We do have refreshments out in the lobby. There's water, juice, coffee. We do not plan on taking a formal break. We're just going to push through until we get to lunchtime. So please, if you need to go to the restroom or you'd like to have something to drink, please help yourself. And then once we get through the end, we do have lunch that's being provided by Greg and his wonderful folks. Or I don't know, some of you may have seen that they're barbecuing outside, so that may be a little bit of a hint to what we're going to be having for lunch. So we hope that you'll be able to stay with us and eat and talk with our folks from ARC and everybody. So, all right, Vanessa.
All right, good morning everyone, and thank you for having us here today. I will say that we have felt more welcome in this community possibly than any other community that we have went into, and I just want to thank you for that. Thank you, Dana. I know that you and your team have helped really lead the way on that, but we're so excited about the men's facility that's coming, and super excited about the announcement today of the women's facility. We've all been keeping our mouths shut about that since we heard about it very recently. So I'm super excited about that. I'm really glad to be here with you today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, and then I'm going to go into the history of ARC. And you know, the history of ARC is echoed all throughout my story, and so I felt like it was important for you guys to know a little bit about who I was to start with. So I am a person of long-term recovery. I was in active addiction for 13 years. I'm originally from Martin County, Kentucky, and I started using drugs when I was 15 years old, and when I was 17, that's when I was introduced to Oxycontin, and at that point, my entire world turned upside down, and so I struggled with addiction, struggled holding my life together. I've been arrested multiple times. You know, I was raised in a family where I knew right from wrong. You know, my mom instilled every good moral and taught me how to act and how to be kind to people, and I always excelled in school, but none of that mattered once addiction got a hold of me. And so finally in 2010, I had been arrested multiple times that year, and that's where my life and life at ARC really combined. So in 2006, our owner and CEO, he had a radical delivery from alcoholism, and he had been the assistant prosecuting attorney in Lawrence County, Kentucky at that point. And so he had struggled with alcoholism for a long time, and his mother had passed away, and his alcoholism went from bad to worse. And so thankfully he found the Lord, and he had a bailiff that worked in Lawrence County that helped lead him to the Lord one day in his office. And he knew at that point that he needed to do something more for the community, and he knew that, you know, if there was a solution to his alcoholism, that there could be a solution to the problem that he kept seeing in the court system. The same people coming back through, cycling back, back in through the courts, and he was seeing them repetitively. We all know how that is. You know, when you're in a small town and you're a drug addict or alcoholic, you're in the court system a lot. You know, you get in a lot of trouble. And so he ended up giving up his law practice in 2008 and started a grassroots ministry, which then grew into what is now addiction recovery care. So from 2008 to 2010, he was just driving people to treatment. That was his ministry. He was finding people who needed help, and he was driving them to treatment. My husband was, I did not know him at the time, but he was actually the third person that our owner, Tim Robinson, actually drove to treatment, and he drove him to a treatment facility called Chad's Hope in Manchester, Kentucky. So my story and ARC's story really combined when Karen's Place opened in 2010. So on December 2nd, 2010, that's a date that will forever be ingrained in my mind because I was their first client. You know, God completely ordained that. I couldn't have chosen that for myself if I wanted to, but I'm so grateful that that was the plan that God had for me. And thankfully, that was a monumental time in my life. I had no idea at that point what recovery even was. You know, I didn't know that it was possible. You know, I was going to have to go to jail or go to treatment. I had thankfully the judge had given me an option, and the county attorney in Martin County, his name at the time was Keenis Maynard, and he'd watched me grow up. You know, when you're from a small town, everybody knows everybody. You guys know that just as well as I do. His son had went to school with my sister, and he had looked at me that day in court and said, "Little girl, I will not have your death on my conscience," because that's where I was at in life. I was going to end up dead if I didn't get some kind of help. I've been an IV needle user for the last 2 years of my addiction, and you know, I always think it's really neat that it was about the same time that Tim had given up everything to follow what God wanted him to do, and that was the same time in my life where my addiction had completely went off the rails. You know, using drugs all those years, but once you start sticking a needle in your arm every day to get high, I mean, that's a very different kind of problem that you have. And so thankfully, you know, I'm always so thankful for the court system, because, you know, my mom had tried to get me to get help for years. You know, she didn't really know that there was what help was either. She just knew she wanted her daughter back. But I'm so thankful for the court systems, and that they're willing to work with us and work with people and see that there could possibly be a solution to their addiction problem versus always just throwing them in jail. Which, you know, there was a choice there. You know, I was going to have to go do at least a year in jail if I didn't go to treatment. But so thankful Karen's Place opened that day in December. They actually postponed my court date multiple times because the county attorney was determined that I was going to go to Karen's Place. You know, he had known Tim, and Tim grew up in Martin County also. So he knew him, and he knew what he was doing, and, you know, he really wanted me to go there. And so I'm so thankful that ended up being part of my story. But I've been with ARC for the majority of the time since then, so getting to tell you guys about the history is always really special to me, because I've gotten to experience so much of this as I've you know, went through the program. I did an internship, I became a staff member, I became the staff. I had the schedule that nobody really wants in the beginning, the night shift residential staff, but that's like where you normally end up starting out. But it has grown me into who I am today. And so when I stand here and say to you that I know we have a treatment program that works, I know that we have a treatment program that works. You know, I'm living proof that it definitely worked for me. And I was one of those people that the majority of the people who ran into me every day just really wished I wasn't around. Because I was you know, stealing from everybody. Oh my gosh, I was just wreaking havoc on my small town, and I'm so grateful that that people who are currently wreaking havoc on your small town, I'm so excited that we're going to very soon get to help them too. So 2010 is when Karen's Place opened, and then in 2000 we continued to grow slowly. From 2010 to 2015, we opened up a couple of more centers in between in that amount of time. But then in 2015, the whole landscape of addiction treatment in the state of Kentucky really changed, because that's when the residential benefit was developed with Medicaid. And so that allowed access for people who really needed access to treatment to have it. You know, when Medicaid determined that they would have a residential benefit, that allowed people who probably needed our help the most to be able to gain treatment. So we were able to admit the first Medicaid client at a residential level of care, and we were so prepared, because, you know, we started out and everything was just donations. You know, we had no funding model at all. You know, it was local churches. I can remember we used to go and sing at churches and hope that they would give us money, because if they didn't, we might have not had gas money to get home. But we started out, and that's how it was. And then, you know, our owner, I mean, he's just such a visionary, and he, you know, when he sees that there is a way to do something better, I mean, that's the direction that our company will always go. And so as he began to really develop an actual funding model so we could help more people, that the residential benefit from Medicaid really helped that to come to life in that area. So in 2016, we created a vocational track to go along with our program. You know, we were already had the clinical piece, the medical piece, the spiritual life piece was already there, but then we added in a vocational track, because, you know, that's one thing that if someone doesn't have something to look forward to and they don't leave a program having a way to be able to support their family, it is so easy to fall back into that trap of addiction again, because you're going to have to do what you have to do. And so we developed the Peer Support Academy in 2016, and it has really served our clients so well. We still produce many peer support specialists every month. This morning I got the numbers all together in all of our vocational tracks this morning. You'll hear more about those later. There are the additional ones that we have today, but we have over 200 clients currently enrolled in one of our vocational tracks. And so it's a beautiful thing to watch people realize that they can have a life after addiction. You know, they can have a purpose-filled life after addiction. In 2020, we opened Crown Recovery Center in Springfield, Kentucky, and it's our most comprehensive program. It's actually on an old college campus, so we can serve up to 750 clients at a time at that one campus. And it was a really exciting time in ARC. It was a very scary time in ARC. You know, you open a campus that big and it's like, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to feel it? Well, we've been able to feel it, unfortunately, but fortunately. You know, that's one of the things that I say oftentimes. I hope one day we all work ourselves out of a job. I'll go on and do something else, and I'm sure everyone else at ARC would be happy to do that too. If there wasn't an addiction problem, I would be very happy to go on and work somewhere else and do something else in life. But while there still is an addiction problem, I love that ARC's always willing to answer the call and fill that need wherever it needs to be. So currently in ARC, we have over 30 programs across 22 Kentucky counties. And as you know, we're continuing to grow. That's one of the reasons we're here today. So this next slide is going to show you our map, and I'll wait for the guys to get the map up on the screen. Thank you. So this shows you where we are. You know, we started out in Louisa, Kentucky, which is very far east, and so you can see that we are Eastern Kentucky heavy. That's where the majority of our footprint has been. We moved in towards Central Kentucky, and we have the furthest facility we have in Western Kentucky is in Owensboro, and we had opened that this year. So you'll see the dark blue dots are our residential facilities. That's where someone is actually housed with us. And then we have the open blue dots, which are transitional learning facilities. They're housed with us in these programs too, but these are our later phase programs. And then we have outpatient centers with the white dots, and we have a new program that we just opened in November. I'm excited to tell you a little bit more about that later. It's our yellow dot. That's in Greenup County, and that is our psychiatric hospital. And so we're really excited about that. When we were working with the state to get all of our credentials to be able to open this hospital, there have been people who had worked in their positions at the state for upward of 15 years, and they had never had anyone come to them and ask them questions about opening up a hospital. There's been hospitals that have had satellite campuses, but that's something that is evidently not done too often. So we're really proud to have that open and running now. And then you can see with the red dots, those are all of our up and coming centers that we have coming in Kentucky, and also we have, of course, Virginia, and we have some facilities that are coming open in Ohio soon. So all of our facilities are duly recognized, and this is really important. You know, there are a lot of, sober living houses that come open, and some of them are great. And some of them really are not. And so you have to always be aware of the bad actors who are on the scene. But if someone is looking for a treatment facility for someone who actually needs drug and alcohol treatment, looking for these seals of approval is very important. So we are accredited by CARF, which is the Commission on Accreditation of Rehabilitation Facilities for Drug and Alcohol Treatment Centers. And then we are also accredited by ASAM, which is the American Society of Addiction Medicine. And so that means that they have came in, looked at everything we do. We have to do surveys every year, every 3 years. We're currently in the process of doing some more ASAM surveys to get recertified at some of our locations. But they go through everything we do. They look at every single document that we have, and they give us their stamp of approval saying that we are doing what we say we're doing, and we are doing it with the absolute best intentions, and that we are providing the services that our clients need to help them to overcome their addiction. So I'm really proud to be recognized by both of those organizations. So we're accredited. We have 6 CARF accredited areas, and so that's our residential programs, our partial hospitalization program, our outpatient programs, our intensive outpatient programs, our detoxification with withdrawal management, and also our targeted case management. So it's not just one area within the organization that we are accredited with CARF, but we have 6 different areas. So that just shows you that we are doing what we say we are doing. So right now at ARC, we have approximately 2,000 clients in our care at all times. And and then we have approximately 1,000 employees. I think it's a little bit over 1,000 employees currently. But out of our 1,000 employees, 50% of them are in recovery. And about 33 to 35% of them are actually graduates from our program. And so I love that. I mean, obviously, I'm one of the 33 to 35% who is in recovery and a graduate of our program. But I love that we're able to hire so many people who come through our program and be able to get them trained for the different positions that we may have available. A lot of them are peer support specialists. A lot of them are in leadership. And that, we have a lot of the directors at our facilities are graduates of our programs. And so it's really awesome to watch them go through a program, spend a few years at ARC, learning the leadership skills that they need, and then be able to go and run one of our programs for us. And it's the most beautiful thing to watch that happen in people's lives. And so of our 2,000 patients, we have approximately 1,250 who are housed with us at one of our programs, and then about 750 of them are in our traditional outpatient program, which means they live at home and they come to one of our outpatient facilities to receive the services. So from 2010 to today, we have served over 60,000 clients in our program. And of the clients, last year alone, we had over 7,500 in our come through our residential program, and almost 2,500 come through our outpatient program. So that is a huge. I look at these numbers and it still blows my mind, considering when I walked into Karen's place in 2010, it was a bunch of volunteers, no one was getting paid, and it was just me. And so I look at what ARC has done over the years, and it amazes me, and saying those numbers out loud, it's like, oh my gosh, that really is what we're doing. So really, really proud of that, to be able to help that many people. So we'll talk a little bit about our holistic approach to care. I know I touched on that just a little bit earlier, but it can be summed up as ropes. So we, of course, have a recovery program that we run every day. Our peer support specialist helps to run this recovery program. It is absolutely invaluable for someone who has lived experience to be able to help walk someone through the same thing that they just walked through about a year ago. So it is absolutely invaluable to have their perspective and to have their expertise when it comes to being able to help our clients. We also have opportunity. So opportunity are our vocational tracks. It is the educational component that ARC offers. So once someone is, after they've been with us for 6 months, that's when their internship program starts. And so that's when the opportunity piece really comes to life. That's when those educational and work-ready programs come into place. We have a physical health program that we run. We have, one of our nurses is going to be on our panel in a little bit, and she's, I don't know your title, Amanda, but I know she's a director of nursing. And so you're going to hear a little bit more about our physical health program. We have psychiatric nurse practitioners, we have nurses, we have RNs, we have CNAs, we have regular nurse practitioners. So we have a ton of medical staff who are focused on our clients' physical health, because we all know that someone who has been in addiction for decades, they are not focusing on their physical health. They have probably not been to the doctor unless it be for an abscess or some type of emergency treatment that they have for years. And so a lot of them have heart issues. We treat their diabetes, we treat hepatitis C. Whatever it is that is ailing them, we ensure that they get treated for that while they're with us, because it's really hard to focus on your recovery if you have something in your physical health that is ailing you, and that's pulling your attention away from what you need to focus on to get better when it comes to your recovery. So we make sure that they are treated for whatever they have going on in their life when they come to us. We also have a very strong emotional health program, which is led up by our clinicians. We have clinicians who are in person at the facilities. We have telehealth clinicians. You know, the emotional well-being of our clients is definitely one of our #1 priorities. We want them to be whole completely. And then we have our spiritual life program, which is an optional program. You know, clients do not have to partake in that if they do not choose to. It is there. We have different types of religious services on our campus in Springfield. We actually have the room there to do that. But someone is not forced to partake in the spiritual life program, but we all know that that is an integral piece of someone's recovery, just in their life in general. So that is offered to them at any given time, and we have most of them, I will say, by at least the end of their journey, are taking part in our spiritual life program. Oftentimes there have been hurts in their life that prevent them from wanting to take part in that in the beginning. But when you're surrounded by people every day who exude God's love around you, that ends up being a natural part of what you end up taking part in. So we have a maternity center, and we are really proud of our maternity center. It's in Ashland, Kentucky, and we just celebrated our 300th baby born at our maternity center just last month, and we are so proud of this program, and I love to visit this program. When you walk in, there are little pink and blue footprints that are all along the hallway when you walk in, and they are the babies who've been born while they're in our program. So it's such a special place. And you know, God's given us the opportunity to not just help one person at a time, but really to help rescue 2 lives at a time when we get these mamas in who are pregnant and who need our help so much. And so 76% of the babies while born at our facility have came back to the facility with the mom in less than 5 days or less. And so that is huge, because we all know the statistics of babies who are born addicted to drugs and alcohol. So it is a very lengthy NICU stay oftentimes, and so normally it's 20 days or more, and so that's 20 days or more that the babies are just going through absolute torment, and they're separated from their mom, and we all know how hard those NICU stays can be on babies. You know, the medical professionals will do everything that they can, but that's just not the birth story that we want any child to have to experience. So you'll see that on average in 5 days or less, they're coming home to the maternity center with their mom. So we love what we're doing there, and we're really, really proud of that program. So we'll talk a little bit about serious mental illness. We all know that mental illness and drug addiction go hand in hand. I'm sure there's probably no one in this room that doesn't understand that. And so when we were looking back through all of the charts that we have on our clients, we have, out of 1,263 patients in our residential setting, over 50% of them have some type of serious mental illness. And now serious mental illness is defined by individuals who are diagnosed with bipolar, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, or a major depressive disorder. And then out of our 697 patients in our outpatient setting, 249, or about 35% of them, are classified as having an SMI diagnosis. And so we have seen this. We have seen serious mental illness increase a bit. Of course, we all know what COVID did to everyone's mental health. And so, like I mentioned earlier, you know, when we see that there is a need for something, ARC is always ready to help meet that need. And so, with that, we opened our Bellefonte Hospital and Recovery Center. We opened our 40-bed psychiatric facility in Greenup County, Kentucky, and there is a picture of that they can pop up on the screen. And so this is actually, this is the large hospital that we will be turning into our different phases of our program, but there's also a smaller building that we just opened up as the 40-bed psychiatric hospital, so we can help to meet the needs of the clients who really need to have more intensive psychiatric services. And so for someone to be able to go to our psychiatric facility, it's just like any other psychiatric facility out there. they basically have to be homicidal or suicidal in that moment. And so, but we get that a lot. You know, we have a lot of clients who come in, and meth psychosis is definitely a thing, and we deal with that every day. And so they may come into our facility and, you know, present to be okay, but then by the second or third day that they're with us, you know, they're talking to themselves, you know, they're unable to complete our program at that time. And so we have to send a lot of clients out for things like that. So we're really excited to be able to offer that as one of our lines of service now at Addiction Recovery Care. And so we do have plans to extend the behavioral health continuum as things go along. So we will be opening personal care homes, assisted living homes, and therapeutic rehabilitation programs. You know, there's such a gap in services in our state, and I'm sure you guys see that often here in Virginia too. So as you know, as we continue to grow, we're looking where those gaps are, where we're going to be able to continue to expand services. You know, some of the clients who come through our program, they may never be able to go out and live a life and be completely independent. And we see that and we know that. And in order to be able to set everyone up for success, we have to have other lines of services that's a wraparound program for people to be able to live at whatever level of capacity they're going to be able to live their life. And so that's something that we do have coming in the future, and we know that these 3 programs we have coming are going to help with that. So that is all from my part. We will have Mr. John Wilson come on up and talk to you guys. And I asked him when he walked in this morning, John, where is your 3-piece suit? Because we all saw pictures of him last night in his tux. So we were excited that you're here with us today, John, and I will get out of your way.
Well, thank you, Vanessa, and thank you all for coming out this morning. Before I took a position with ARC, I was a local elected official, county judge executive in a rural community. So I love coming to Dickinson County because you all are my kind of people, and I feel at home here. And every time I come here, I notice the growth in your community. I remember the first time I came here, you know, they were just kind of scraping the lot for the grocery store out there, and seeing that out above ground now, and our project, and there's a lot of exciting things happening in Dickinson County. And I want to recognize the unbelievable talent that you have working on your behalf here. And Dana, Larry, Freddie, I have, been all over the country. Every local elected official runs for office, and they talk about one thing: economic development, jobs. And here in Dickinson County, you have such an unbelievable accumulation of talent. And a lot of these projects wouldn't be happening without those folks. And I know here in particular, Freddie got in his car, drove to Pikeville, meets up with Greg May over some barbecue, which we're going to get to enjoy some of that today. But that was the genesis of this project. So, you know, I've never seen a greater concentration of such talent in a community of this size. And I really want to thank you all for what you've done for us and to get us here. And that is really, truly why we're here. Go ahead and show the first slide here. So, like I said, one of the big things that everybody talks about are jobs and economic development. And what we have seen, and the data shows, is that the 2 greatest drivers to success in long-term recovery are length of time in treatment and vocational opportunities after treatment. And so we feel our program, it's nationally recognized, we call it Crisis to Career, that it melds those 2 things together. We have an extraordinarily long treatment program, and then we meld these vocational opportunities afterwards. Where our largest treatment center is in Springfield, Kentucky. The largest employer there is a wholly owned subsidiary of Toyota named Toyota Tomy. Toyota Tomy has 500 positions there. They make parts for the automotive industry. And they came to us and said, of our 500 positions, 65 are vacant. And we're actually flying welders in from Japan and housing them in Springfield, Kentucky, rural community also, so that they can weld for us. You can imagine the disconnect here, what that means for a community where manufacturers having to fly welders in from Japan. So what we did is we worked with Toyota Tomy. Their HR department enrolled in the Fair Chance Academy with the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. And what this does is helps HR professionals understand, you know, the peculiarities of working with people who are in second chance employment. And what the data shows is second chance employees who are properly sourced and properly supported actually have a greater return on investment than your normal employee off the street. And so what we did with Toyota Tomy, we developed a training program around their needs. And in January of 2012, we started a workforce program where folks come into our program in crisis, many times high when they walk in the door. They go through all the steps of the program, and as they finish out, we're still providing the wraparound services, we're still providing the housing, still providing the peer support and clinical coverage, we're doing the drug testing, but we're also taking them to work every day so they can kind of start getting acclimated into the workforce. We're doing financial literacy courses and requiring them to continue with their step work. So this has created a talent pipeline for Toyota Tomy. So as of October 2022, Toyota Tomy was employing over 20 art graduates in full and part-time positions, and they have another 25 on the waiting list. And just 2 months ago, we had our first art graduate who's now making 6 figures who's come through that program. We'll go ahead and show that video, gentlemen.
Since the start of Addiction Recovery Care's Crisis to Career model, mountains have been moved, but we know more work needs to be done. Research shows America's addiction problem is the same as our workforce problem. One of the telltale signs of a community's substance abuse problem is the deterioration of the local workforce. And the fact is, it's affecting blue-collar and white-collar employees alike. In fact, Harvard Health reports American businesses and organizations report an average of $81 billion in lost profits every year. But the results are changing. Right now at Addiction Recovery Care, you will find people taking full advantage of our Crisis to Career model and a long list of job training programs. This could be from event planning, culinary arts, carpentry, certified nursing assistants, welding, and more. We realize the ultimate investment to building back our workforce is the people we serve, and the results are groundbreaking. Thanks to partnerships with companies like Toyotomi America and Springfield, Kentucky, our clients have graduated our Crisis to Career programs and entered directly into the workforce, and in some cases, leading the workforce. Since the launch of the partnership in January of 2022, 52 placements were made, with 8 joining the company full-time, with 2 being promoted to team leaders. This also resulted in 15 educational programs completed, 18 vehicles purchased, 10 rented apartments. The investment is worth it. Out of all the pathways to recovery, job training plus residential treatment give the best chance at long-term recovery and the most return on investment back in our local and state economy. That's why investments in healthcare are investments in the future of those in recovery and those still struggling with addiction. The truth is, not all addiction treatment options are the same. That's why at Addiction Recovery Care, we are proud to lead the state into a tomorrow full of hope for the people we serve, endless opportunities for a bright future, and helping everyone discover their destiny away from substance abuse. Our full model can be viewed by visiting www.arccenters.com.
Okay, thank you. So, and I know Larry and Dana would tell you that you can't recruit new businesses to your community if you can't staff them. And that was my problem in Garrett County, is that we would try to recruit manufacturers to our community, and we couldn't have people who would staff those positions who could pass drug tests and show up to work. And that was one of our major barriers. And so, and what we've seen around the whole country is that substance abuse disorder is a workforce problem. And this quote here is really, to me, staggering, these next 2 slides. If you don't take away anything else from my presentation, this is it right here. The increase in opioid prescription from 1999 to 2015 could account for about 43% of the observed decline in the men's labor force participation during that period, and 25% of the observed decline in women's labor force participation. So the big problem that we have is that there is a gigantic issue with the declining labor participation rates in our country. You all see that when you try to go to the store to go get fast food. You try to order something from Amazon, there's these delays. A lot of that is due to this labor force participation rate. And what we've seen is the relationship that's quantified with substance abuse disorder and that decline in that labor force participation. We'll go to the next slide. And here it is right here. The biggest hole in our workforce is prime-age men between 24 and 55 in age. And here it is, 50% of those men, 50% are taking pain medications every day, and only 2/3 have a prescription. And there's more data on that, how many are actually using their prescriptions appropriately. But a full third are using illicit drugs. You think about that. And then we really start to get a handle on what our problem is in the country and why this is so important. We obviously know substance abuse treatment is the right thing, but even if, and I understand there's some people who say, look, I don't care, let the problem work itself out. Here's where it matters to all of us. It matters to our economy. Go on to the next slide, please. So like I said, we call our program Crisis to Career. And we have, like I said at the beginning, we have an extraordinarily lengthy treatment program, which really makes a difference in long-term success. So our first phase, I call it the detox phase. I know Amanda doesn't like that, but stabilization, people come in off the street, it's the first 30 days. Many programs, this is it. This is the only part of treatment you're getting. But this is our residential treatment program. It's very intense. There's very few privileges when folks come into this phase. They no visits, they get supervised phone calls. We're doing we're trying to get them assessed, their clinical needs, their medical needs, and we have a heavy, one of the things that we recognize is that we have clinicians. I know we have one here today from Dickinson County to talk to me. But if we can't address the underlying issues that oftentimes leads to addiction, we're really not treating addiction. You can dry somebody out, but we have to give these folks the tools to cope with those things in a healthy fashion so that they'll stay sober long term. So we start that in our first phase during our first 30 days. The second phase I call our recovery phase. It's generally between 45 and 60 days long. This is where we give our men and women the recovery skills to stay sober. We also start with a targeted case management here where we get our men and women thinking about what life will be like after they complete treatment. So we're taking care of any type of support issues. A lot of times people have custody things that are going on. There could be, someone didn't show up for court. There's child support issues. There's anger management issues. So the case managers are helping with that. What's housing look like afterwards? Most folks who come into our treatment center don't have an ID card, don't have a social security card. Well, you can't apply for a job without one of those things. So we're trying to pair those things up and get our folks ready to succeed when they leave. So the third phase, that completes out, it's generally about 90 days. I call it our life skills phase. A lot of folks, when they start in addiction, that's kind of where they stop growing. And so there's a lot of things that we take for granted that we're trying to help give these men and women those skills to help acclimate them back into society, give them a lot more responsibility, a lot more freedom they're providing. They get 10-hour passes on Saturday, 10-hour pass on Sunday. Most other treatment programs are already home, they're already on the street, but with us, they're still here, they're still getting those clinical peer support services, still getting medical services, still getting weekly drug tests. And then they graduate and they can apply for our phase 4. This is what we call our internship program locally, but this is another 6-month program, which it's paired with an educational component, and we do the vocational training. So during phase 2 and 3, we're trying to get these men and women thinking, what does life look like when you leave treatment? Do you want to go to college? Do you want to work for Toyota Toma? Do you want to work? And we have, my next slide will go on to show this, but everybody leaves with a skill. Well, not this slide after, but we'll do this one first. This is really cool. We did a study on our graduates recently. So before treatment, 36% of our participants were either incarcerated or hospitalized. 29% were living with family members, a friend, or significant other. This is called underhoused or couch surfing. A full 21% were sleeping outside in a tent or homeless shelter. So here's the neat thing. Since completing treatment, 19 out of 20 were currently employed full-time. 53% owned or leased a home. 76% now own a working vehicle. 61% have enrolled or completed a college program. And Sheriff, 94% have not been rearrested. And that's tracked by the Commonwealth of Kentucky as well. They're using that data for people who come through. So this is the return on investment. This is why it matters to all of us. Next slide. So this talks about the return on investment for the dollars that are spent when we deal with folks who suffer from substance abuse disorder. People who receive treatment in prison, they have these substance abuse programs, SAP programs you may have heard of. This is kind of the lowest return on investment, but it still is helpful, and we have people who I know personally who have success here. $1.91 return for every dollar invested. The next is drug court. It's a much more intensive program, a lot more structured, $2.83 return on every dollar invested. But these next three are kind of where I want to focus. MAT, medical assisted treatment. There's a $4 return on investment, $5.28 return on investment for job training. We talked about that vocational. And then lastly, residential treatment, $7. So if you take those last three, that's essentially the ARC program. And so we feel like by combining these three, you have your greatest return on investment and your greatest likelihood of success. So we do offer medically assisted treatment within our centers. Job training is a major component of what we do, and our long treatment program we feel like is really the recipe for success. Next slide. So the Millard College is something that we started initially. We partnered with the Southern University in Kentucky, where folks could come through and actually get college credits during the final phases of their treatment. We ended up starting our own college. It's in the final phases of the accreditation, so it'll be an accredited college where you can take these courses and transfer over. We're offering courses already in addiction recovery studies, and then we have work-ready certificates in general studies, carpentry, welding, and work-ready certificate in peer support specialist. Kind of a neat thing, this just kind of mentioned here at the bottom with the auto mechanic maintenance. We actually, if someone comes into treatment today and they go through and we offer them a full ASC certified mechanic program. So they will graduate our program after going through treatment, go through that training program, and they are ASC certified mechanic. We have a welding program in Louisa. We'll see a little bit about that later. Guys will spend 6 months with us. They get roughly 1.5 years credit with the trade union towards their journeyman certification. So these are folks who are getting not just jobs, but real careers coming through the program. And this is, again, important for long-term success. We'll move on.
Well, the weld program made some big changes in my life. It kind of helped me be part of the solution to the rehabilitation for these people, help them get jobs, teach them skills, so they can go on and do better in the recovery. I see it growing pretty big because the demand for welders is high. There's always a place for people who can weld. The job force needs it. There's already tons and tons of people wanting to join the program, and it's just, to me, it's just going to grow from there. We'll just be able to work with them and teach them a new trade. It makes me proud because I can help them. You know, something they may never in their life have ever been able to do, I can help them do. It's not just something they do as a job, it's a career that they can build on and keep using for the rest of their life.
So one of the things I love about this project, and I think is so innovative, is that we're locating this men's center in the industrial park. What a wonderful calling card when your economic development folks, Dana and Larry and Freddie, go out and try to recruit light manufacturers and say, hey, now we have a labor pool that can be trained according to whatever your needs are, and use that as a recruiting tool. And I think that's going to be very, very powerful. The next slide I have here is a video from somebody who you all may recognize that face, my friend, Dickinson County native, Mia Stanley. I know this is in the video, Mia, but I'm going to tell it anyway. When they had asked us to come and speak to the Board of Supervisors here last year, and you know, I like to be prepared for these things. I was on essentially the Board of Supervisors back home in Garrett County, and you know, I know what the public expects. And right before I came, they said, "Well, Mia Stanley's going to come and speak to," and I said, "I better meet her, just so I make sure that we're talking." So we go to eat at the Pizza Hut up in town, and as we're going in, I'd offered to buy the law enforcement in the room. We really support law enforcement in our company. So when I walked in, I saw we had their city police, county sheriff, and state troopers there all sitting at a table. And I told the waitress, I said, "Well, put their checks on my tab and I'll get it." And anyway, I guess she told them, and one of the officers came over and was thanking me and said, "What are you doing here?" You know, Vanessa, he recognized I wasn't from here. He said, "What are you buying our meal for?" And then Mia said, "Well, you know me." And he said, "I don't recognize you." And anyway, they got to talking, and Mia goes, "Well, you arrested me before." And he just couldn't believe how far Mia had come from the last time that he had seen her. And Mia gave gave her story that night at the Board of Supervisors, and I don't think there was a dry eye in the entire house. It was very difficult to follow you that day, Mia, but Mia came through a program. She works for us at Lydia's house in Harlan County. She started actually on that third shift residential staff, which is not the best job to have, but she started and done well and been promoted up. And this is her story. She's from Dickinson County, doing well. She's proof that treatment is available and recovery is possible. Mia, I'm very proud of you. Here's your story. And then Sheriff, you're after me. Make a second, give it in person.
It was fun, you know. I had fun growing up. It was a small town, but you know, I had a lot of friends. I had kind of dabbled around, just I guess the normal partying like most kids, some kids do. And in 1999, I tried OxyContin, and that was pretty much it. You know, I fell in love with it, and I could not stop.
I first met her years ago. We had a mutual friend, and she was like probably 30 years ago, probably. So I knew her then before her addiction, where the problem started, and then throughout the years as she went through that, I saw what it did to her. You know, I saw how she looked, and you know, and the problem with law enforcement that she had. So I knew that.
Everybody knew. If they seen me probably to run, I was going to ask for money, or, you know, I was really bad. It got to be, anytime they seen me, I pretty much going to jail for something, you know, or they were following me because they knew I was up to no good. So, yes, I had a lot of run-ins with the law.
One evening while I was working, I was with some other officers, and we was at a local Pizza Hut here in town, and I see her come through the door, and but I didn't know her. As we were getting ready to leave, the server came over and says, "Your bill had been took care of," and you know, and told us where it was at, and it was over to the table that Mia and two of her. And I said, well, they didn't have to do that, but we're going to thank them. So we went over to the table, and Mia says, "You don't know who I am, do you? You don't remember me." And then it hit me. And it was like I went back 30 years to the old Mia that I knew before, and that's who I saw. It was like I went through a time capsule.
This is the town that I fell apart in for so many years, that I was down and out in for so many years. And now I'm seeing like the next generation come up. Their kids, people that I grew up with, their kids coming up. And, you know, overdosing and things like that happening. So it's, yeah, this town, I want to see it. I want to see recovery up here. That's what I want to see.
Well, Mia, what an amazing story. Congratulations to you and your family on recovery. And you'll have to look over me. I'm not much of a public speaker. I'm not a politician. I have been blessed. I'm a elected sheriff in Letcher County, Kentucky. My name's Mickey Steins. I've got 22 years in law enforcement. I really don't want to bore you with all that. I've seen it all. I've done it all. But this is my second term as sheriff. I'm in my 5th year. First of all, I just want to tell you, I wouldn't be here if ARC didn't work. I'm not about the glitz, the glamour, the media for me or my office. We have a small office. I have 10 employees. I've got 2 road deputies and myself. So I'm not a sheriff that sits in the office in a suit and tie. This is about as much as I get dressed up. But I wanted to come and share the stories that we've had with the ARC and tell you that it does work. And I wouldn't be here if it didn't work. I'm getting ready to retire at the end of this term, so I'm not seeking re-election. This is not publicity for me. It's about saving lives. It's about giving your child back, your mother back, your family member back to us in our office. In 2019, when I took over, in about 2 days, we brought in 39 of our citizens to our local jail. Our jail is made to house probably 54 individuals. The district judge, Judge Mullins, which I work closely with every day on trying to seek rehab for individuals we brought in, called me and said, you need to come over, we've got an issue. And I said, Judge, what it is? He said, you got to come over. Our jail houses 54. That first summer, we had the jail up to 149 of our citizens. All 39 of the individuals we brought in 2 days was drug related. He's like, what are we going to do? We'd already started seeking treatment and stuff, some, and working closely with ARC. And Michael Clark is my ARC representative in Letcher County, does a fantastic job. And I said, Judge, there's only one thing we can do is we can try to help these people. So our office started a program that works closely with ARC. It's called Care Before Cuffs. You can walk into my office, the door's open, we'll get you a cup of coffee, something to eat. If you're struggling with addiction, you can sit down with me personally in my office and we'll talk about the benefits of you going to rehab. You don't have to be in trouble, you don't have to have a warrant, anything. You just come in, you speak with us. I have took a chance on a bunch of young kids as deputies, and I've trained them and sent them to the state training and tried to teach them how I would want you to treat my daughter if it was her that was struggling with addiction. And they have took to that, and they've done well with that. They have removed over 7 pounds of meth in 5 years just from our county alone. We have at least 100 fentanyl cases in Letcher County right now. In the 5 years that I've been sheriff and I've worked with Mr. Clark and ARC, we've sent 905 citizens to rehab. At least 17 of them have stayed a year or longer and has went to work in the rehab services with ARC or other programs. We have saved, Sheriff, you can use this for your point with the county. We have saved in that first year alone $240,000 to our county government by not housing these individuals in our jail. We cannot, and we determined this early on, and we was smart enough and lucky enough to figure it out, we cannot arrest our way out of this problem. Yes, we have to arrest them to get it started. We're the front lines of addiction. We have to bring them to jail, unfortunately, to get them help. We cannot incarcerate ourselves out of this problem and addiction we have. For years, we have tried to do that on a state level. Our state level in Kentucky is flawed. You give them 5 years, the individual's out in 6 months with no treatment, no guidelines, no help, no opportunity to seek employment once they're released from prison. They come back to their same friends that's doing the same narcotics. They fall right back into the same line. So we are blessed when people tell us that we are the model county for treatment and how we treat our citizens. I'm a small part of that. Like I said, I work with Michael Clark. He's not here today, but I'll give him a shout out. I have called Mr. Clark myself personally 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. He's always answered. He's always been there to give me guidance, because I can't speak to these people about drug addiction. I've not really, suffered that in my lifetime, but, in high school I partied with a lot of these people that, just couldn't get over the hurdle of addiction, and continued that for many years. Once I continued through what I wanted to do with my life and career, they went a different path, but it's just that we have to have guidance from people that have struggled with it. That is what's made this program so successful in Letcher County. Mr. Clark would come in. I'm going to tell a bad story on you. Probably would really not appreciate it. I ran the House Arrest program for about 16 years in Letcher County while I was a deputy, and Mr. Clark was one of my participants. And I would always make him meet once a week with me in the courtroom. He came in and he was just pitiful. Just didn't know he's in the world. I was putting him in jail, and it's always, why are you picking on me? Why are you picking on me, Clark? And I'm like, Clark, I'm not picking on you. I love you. I want you to get back to your family and your mom and your dad, but we got to put you in jail. So now he tells people he used to run for me, and now he rides with me when we go to schools and programs we've got in place. But law enforcement is a different aspect to treatment. You're going to have some blowback, sheriff, from the community. And it's really hard to stand out and be for rehab, but you got to do it because it's the right thing. I had, about a year ago, several of my best friends came to me and said, Mickey, why are you so adamant about rehab? I said, if it was your daughter, your mother, your son, wouldn't you want me to be? Wouldn't you want me to stand there and say, please help these people? And I personally, people come up to me and tell me and my family and my wife and my daughter that's a junior in high school, say, hey, you saved our life. I didn't save your life. I might give you a nudge in the right direction, make you do something you didn't want to do. Because at the time, they're going to tell you anything. Sure, if they hate you, they hate your family, they're going to come and kill you. I've had death threats, and it's just a sad situation that the world that we live in today, we have to deal with addiction, but it's everywhere. Don't feel lonely and don't feel like it's just you or your county. We have 22,000 people in our county, and I would say a low estimate, 65% is struggling from some addiction. So it's not just you, and it's not just your families, your co-workers, or inmates at your jail. It's everybody. It's a worldwide problem. We have to work together to solve it, and that's what we tried to do. Again, we sent 905 people, 17 of them has at least went to work in the workforce, and we had to, when I took over, change our relationship with the people struggling with addiction. How hard is it for somebody that's always been in trouble with the law? And like I said, it's a small community, so y'all know how it is. Everybody knows me. I was born and raised there, lived there my whole life. How hard is it for them to come in and ask me to help them if I'm not approachable or I look down on people? When I see that person, I've said it multiple times, I see my daughter or my family member that could be struggling and has. On a personal level, my mother and my grandmother struggled with addiction pills. They never got to the meth or the heroin or fentanyl, but they're both deceased now. But I can tell that they struggled with addiction for years as I was a kid, and I remember growing up, and I just wanted to do something different with my life and try to reach out and help individuals at home. So not really much on numbers. I've got some of those from our judge. Again, our district judge has been wonderful, Judge Mullins, and Michael Clark is just really the head of it for us in Letcher County, and I'm just glad to be a small part of it. Again, I want to thank Art for all they've done to save our citizens, and be sure to tell Mr. Robinson I think the world of everyone there. And like I said earlier, again, I wouldn't be here if it didn't work. I'm more of a questions guy. Has anybody got any questions for us, how we do or how we started? We appreciate you. You're the reason that we do it on a day-to-day basis. And, I try to teach the few employees I have that with this recovery efforts, you're going to have people that backslide. Don't belittle them, down talk to them. You're no better than they are. It could be us in 2 weeks that gets in a car wreck, start opioids that's prescribed, or we could get an addiction. Me and Clark joke about it. I always say everybody's got an addiction. You can look at me and tell what mine is. You know, it's food. You know, it's food. It just don't hinder, you know, me the way other addictions do, but everyone's got it. So I am blessed to be a small part of this, and that's why I came today, because ARC and their services work. They save people's lives, and that's what it's about. In the end, that's what it's about. Thank you all again for having me. I'm blessed to be a small part of it.
All right, so at this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Greg May back up to the podium so that he can share with you a little bit about his role and how we make all this happen, and his story, and how a utilities guy from Pikeville, Kentucky got into the world of substance use treatment. So, ready, Greg? Okay, wonderful.
First of all, thank you, Dana, and I want to thank Larry Barton and Freddie Mullins and the folks of Dickerson County to give us an opportunity to be here. So, we're going to, first I got to tell a story, how I got here. So, we do some, as Dana said, I'm a utility guy, and we run utilities. And we actually run the Dickerson County wastewater plant, treatment plant. We operate for them. So we were over here about 3.5 years ago doing a barbecue. And so I am getting ready to pull out my truck, and I see this guy waving and carrying on. And I thought I was about ready to hit someone. And so I stopped. And he rolled the window down. And he said, "Are you Greg May?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you the one that does the rehab centers?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Well, I'm Freddie Mullins, and we need to talk." And so that's where we are today. But I want to start up and talk about, first of all, tell you a little bit about my story, how I got into that, being from a utility guy. You know, we work with a lot of people, we hire a lot of people, and we have a hard time getting employees. And most of myself and my staff all had this idea, or the way we felt about drug addiction was they could get off of it if they wanted to. That was our thoughts. We just pushed it aside. But my story starts with my youngest brother. He'd been in addiction for a long time, and we got him to go to a rehab center, and he stayed clean for about 5 years. And so he fell back into addiction. And I started wanting to figure out how to help him. And to be real honest, I had a set of blinders on that could only see my brother. And so we partnered, I have a partner, and he and I decided we're going to try to start our own addiction company or a place to be able to treat people, because we didn't have one in Pike County. And so we bought a school. We bought the old Miller School and had it licensed for 16 beds. And so we were going to try to do this ourselves, and quickly, as we started down the path of getting these licenses and the credentialing and stuff, we realized we can run water lines, but we don't know a thing about addiction. We would have failed. So that's when I met Tim Robinson. And unfortunately, my brother overdosed and died by the time before I could ever get the thing off anymore. But I met Tim, and Tim and I talked about Tim's vision and what Tim had done. And it was at the point in time that we started, the state, or I think the country, would only allow 16-bed facilities. And so we seen a lot of those facilities fail because the economics just won't work on 16 beds. And so we started planning on what we're going to do. They were moved to try to get facilities to allow more people to have more beds because the need was so great. And I want to talk a little bit about, you're going to hear me repeat some of the things Vanessa and John and the sheriff says. I want to talk from a business standpoint, from an employer, a new perspective on what employers and what communities and what all of us need to do. Because I think it's been mentioned here that I doubt that there's very many in here that don't have a relative or a friend that's not had this issue with addiction. And I know as I talk and become more aware of what's going on in the addiction, I see that and I talk to a lot of people. So in 2019, we opened River Place. And since then, you heard me say that my wife insisted that I do a woman's facility. She said, because you're not going to leave the women out. So we went and opened up. We now have 3 facilities that ARC runs all of them. And let me say this, the relationship between ARC and myself, I could never imagine working for any other company and person. Tim Robinson, you've heard people say about Tim Robinson today. The thing that's most attractive about ARC and Tim Robinson, it's not all his ideas. You go to him with a better idea or a better way to do something, he listens and he'll just take it and run with it. So, next slide. So, I just want to point out, we got a 120 bed facility in an outpatient facility on site, and it's located at the Old Millard School, really not far from here, on over 460. So the progress in the opportunity presented us with this school, we really, is what's incredible about this, we've taken facilities that would usually grow up or become dilapidated and be an eyesore. This building was built in 1966, and we've taken this building and refurbished it. And, you know, the sheriff hit on something that I want to say. When he talks to these people, you're always in the back of your mind, what if it was my son or daughter? And the way we've approached building these schools and remodeling them is, I want to have a place to where I wouldn't be afraid to drop one of my children. I want to know the treatment model works. I want to know the facility is a nice facility. And so, Sheriff, I appreciate your comments and the way you feel about, we always need to think of what if it was us? What if it was our family? So, I'm just, the next couple of slides, I'm going to show you just pictures of the facility. That's what inside of the Old Millard School looks like at River Place. We've got the rec room, and we've got the conference rooms and treatment rooms, and I actually have a chapel inside it I named in honor of my brother. So, just to tell you from my perspective, we've got to have the faith piece involved if the people so choose to have it. We do, I personally believe there's a higher power that you got to have coming out of this addiction. You got to have that piece. So, that's our Creekside facility over in Knott County, Kentucky. That's a 120 bed men's facility. That's their White Oak Hill facility. We opened that one, I think, last year. It's a 144 bed women's facility. We've taken another old school and transformed it into a treatment facility. And what we found is these school buildings, really this one, you couldn't have taken this building and tried to draw out a facility for treatment that matches. It's almost like we planned that school was built for this treatment facility. So we're pretty proud of what we've been able to do with the school buildings. So I was talking to you about the progress of Creekside. You hear Vanessa and you've heard John talk about not just getting through treatment. Just getting through a treatment program is not what it's all about. And so we talked about the health. These guys and ladies have gone through years of not watching or not having anything done with their health or not knowing anything. They've just been on drugs and they've been in addiction, and they've just not taken care of themselves and really don't know how or have the access to it. So what we've been able to do, I'll remember I'm so far back I can't see it, don't have it in front of me. But what we do, Tim and I had a vision of bringing all the local players into place, all the people trying to get everyone to buy into what we're trying to do here. So what we've done is I went to work and started working with UPIC, and they have an optometry school. So, and they have getting ready to open a dental school. They have a medical school. And then the hospital has a level 2 trauma center in their hospital. And so we collaborated with those folks, and I'm going to show you just a couple of slides. And what we've been able to do, partner with the university and the Michael Medical Center and the Big Sandy Technical School and some others, and what we've been able to do. And this is a model that it's not going to work in every place, but we want to duplicate that here in Southwest Virginia because we understand we're all in Appalachia. You are our neighbors. I'm an hour down the road. You've got the same problems we have. We're in the same boat, and so we know that we want to try to do over here the success we've had over in Kentucky working with art. Next slide. So so we started developing a plan to work with Big Sandy, UPIC, Pikeville Medical Center, and then we knew there was another component. And so about 3 years ago, I started a nonprofit called River Place Assistance Corps. And we know that getting through, and I'll use this, we would like for them all to stay a year because we've seen the most success, I think, getting to what John talked about, a crisis to career. But with this nonprofit, we were able to raise money and start working on transitional housing and helping families that's coming out of addiction that has a hard time of just affording to buy food and support their families while they're in treatment. So we form these partnerships. Go ahead, next slide. So what we've been able to do, go ahead with the next slide. So what we've been able to do here, you'll see this is actually in the treatment center at River Place. So we've got the University of Pikeville to bring their optometry center and put it in the school, and they bring their students along with an instructor up, and they actually do eye exams, make glasses, and try to whatever the person needs that's not had eye care or not been to an eye doctor in years, we're actually on site getting that service and being able to help them get some of their physical health back that Vanessa talked about. Next slide. You'll see here we've got a food bank that we operate out of the nonprofit, that we've got this food bank set up inside the facility. So if someone drops their dad or someone off and they can't afford food, and so we open this up to where they can go in and kind of shop and help them for however we can with food, and also the ones that comes back in outpatient. We have an outpatient center in the building, and so the outpatient people can come back and get some food. And the reason I'm saying this, I'll get to it in a minute, but why we think this is so important is that they need all the help they can get. And we've got to figure out as a community and as a private individuals and businesses, we can't just leave all of it up to the treatment folks. So we've got to have a lot of buy-in in this. Go ahead. Just showing you some examples. My picture didn't turn out very well. I had to do this at 5 o'clock this morning, so I just got back into town. But through that nonprofit, we started this nonprofit doing not only the food program, but this is our first transitional house that we just opened up in July that we built through the nonprofit. And because we recognize, I think the sheriff and I think John both have said, you can go through as many treatment programs you want. If you don't have a purpose in life, you're coming out there, you need a job and you need a place to stay. And we think that's just as much a part of treatment and getting people out of addiction as the program itself. So go ahead. Again, I apologize for I'm sorry, I didn't bring this with me. So another one of the things that we're doing is a lot of times we've entered a partnership with the Hackle Medical Center. So a lot of the times they come in the first 30 days. I think Vanessa led to they're going through all these trying to. They're still in a I mean, they're still high. They're just so. We have entered into agreement with Hackle Medical Center. We have a telehealth on place that they can actually take them over to the, we have a room set up there, and they can do telehealth straight into the Hackle Medical Center's emergency room. So instead of having to run them down to the hospital, sit in the emergency room 6 or 7 hours and time up staff, we actually have this in place where they can telehealth excuse me, straight into the hospital. So it just cuts down on a lot of things, and it just helps. This builds a lot of confidence up in the residents there to see these programs in place and be able to get that. I talk to some of the guys in River Place a lot of times when I drive by and see, and it's just, they feel like people care when they got these services and stuff, and that's so important. As you talk to these people, you know, they're starting to feel like that people really care, we matter. And I think from an individual standpoint, a community standpoint, that's what we've got to embrace. We've got to embrace to let these people that they deserve the second chance. So go ahead. So this is why we're standing here today. I already told the story about Brady running me down the parking lot. So it's been about 3.5 years ago when that happened. So we started talking about building one of these over, and I started talking to Tim and Freddie and Dana and Larry and several others. I think even Congressman Griffith. They've all been to River Place. I don't know how many times. Some of the commissioners and delegates and stuff. We've had a lot of visitors from Virginia to come down and tour our facilities and stuff, and so we just kept working. And I think, like Dana said, we've run against 2 or 3 walls that we thought that we weren't going to be able to get it done. But we're on the path. It's finally happened. We're proud to be here. We're proud to bring ARC with us. And so we introduced ARC Virginia. And so you're going to hear a lot more about ARC in days to come as we continue to grow and continue to try to help the people in Dickinson County. So go ahead. So this is a clip. So we had a press conference. We had Congressman Griffith up with us, and so we're looking forward to a Wildwood facility. And if anybody in case anybody's wondering why we call it Wildwood, it's in honor of Ralph Stanley. So Tim Robinson's dad, I'm going to tell this quick story. Tim Robinson's dad, Ralph Stanley, was one of his most favorite musicians, loved bluegrass. And so when we called White Oak Hill over in Martin County, we got to build that facility. we called it White Oak Hill because Ralph Stanley had a song, and it was Tim's dad's favorite song. We called it White Oak Hill facility after Ralph Stanley. And so we wanted to carry on the Ralph Stanley tradition since his museum's here in Clintwood. So we wanted to kind of pattern that after Mr. Stanley and some of the history of the county over here. So that's going to be our facility's name is White Oak Recovery Center. So let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to get over here where I can see this. Let's talk about what employers can and must do and to play a role in the addiction. Among other efforts, awareness and communication can reduce the barriers and stigma of recent report says. And we all know, and I truly believe that's what's happened in my life, trying to take the stigma off of folks in addiction was a big change in my thought process. You know, even my employees will tell you, we all would go out and try to hire these guys to come to work, and they could pass a drug test and stuff, and I simply, again, I will repeat and say, I thought, well, they can get off of it if they want to. That's how I felt about my brother. But as I got to know Tim, got to become more involved in addiction and want to do more, I quickly learned that it's an illness and they can't do it by themselves. There's very few people have ever come out of addiction by themselves, and that's the way I personally think about it. So, back up. So, workplaces have a crucial role, and you've heard that from John Wilkes. They have a crucial role. This is a report from Forest Marsh in March 23. With 1 in 11 U.S. employees living with a substance abuse disorder, and more than 14 million Americans are in recovery. And workplaces can't be an afterthought for supporting the recovery from substance abuse. Workplaces too often are looked as an essential source of support. He said, our research lays bare the role business leaders can and must play in the recovery process. And enabling workers in recovery to thrive in jobs and employees will assure and reduce suffering, sickness, and absenteeism. It turns out it's also great business. I think what we've learned from what you've heard from John Wilson earlier, now that the employers and the Chamber of Commerce is trying to figure out how we're going to get the workforce back in place and where it should be, I think we got to educate. Go ahead to the next slide. We got to educate the employers the problems in the way that we have to treat people in addiction. There's certain ways, and I really appreciate Tim and Art for working with the State Chamber of Commerce to get them to understand that we got to not only teach ourselves, we got to teach the business people on the problems that they have and some of the ways that they can help people in addiction. I'll give you one example that I never thought of is people in addiction still need to follow up counseling. And so the employers have got to understand it's an important part of the continuing treatment that they go every day or once a week to their counseling. And so when you hire these people, we've got to figure out a way to give them time through that week to make sure that they go to that counseling. It's just a vital part of that continuing counseling they get that makes them successful. And so as employers, myself included, we've got to understand that these pieces of this that we've got to help fix to allow those things to continue. So, you know, when I was doing some of this research, I found out some of the people that I didn't know that had an addiction problem. So, overcoming addiction to become great leaders in tech and media. I didn't know that Oprah Winfrey ever had a drug problem. And so So in her later years, she was in a talk show and was asked her about it, so she was addicted to crack cocaine. And so while I put this up here, I want to show you a couple other people that we know people in addiction with the proper treatment and rehab and counseling, they can overcome it as well. So, go ahead. Kyle Cudlow, one of the most financial advisors they are in the country, had an addiction problem through the stress and stuff. And so, these are people that I never knew until I started working and researching, trying to put this thing together, that, we all know. And we all know that we're very successful. And then the things I didn't know that these folks had an addiction problem themselves and overcome it and still become successful. Go ahead. Another one, Brandon Stump. Another success story. But if you read his articles and listen to what he says, without the rehabilitation and without the counseling and the proper time that he put into it, and this is one of his, was the faith piece, he probably would have been, in a lot of cases, much like Vanessa said she would have been, she probably would have been if they had. And so, as an employer, as a grandfather and father, I want what's better for our communities. And I know that this is one of the biggest things facing us in the workforce and in society. So that's the reason I had become so involved in this. Started out trying to do a treatment, went to a landlord, and now I feel like I work for art because I'm so dedicated to wanting to help solve this problem. So say some key takeaways, and I mentioned a couple of those. Some of the world's smartest and most talented individuals have struggled with alcohol and drug addiction. But these business icons found out motivation and strength to move forward in their lives. They pursued their sobriety and did not see their struggles as a lifelong setback. Many used the strategies and tools they've learned in rehabilitation to help them succeed in business leadership. If they can do it, so can other people. And you've heard John, Vanessa, and the sheriff talk about it. We just got to give them a second chance. We've got to work with them, and we've got to be patient and understand. Yes, there are going to be setbacks. There are going to be, sometimes I think, John and Vanessa can correct me, sometimes it takes 3 or 4 times for it to finally work. But the way I feel about it, every life's worth it. If it takes 10 times, as long as they're willing, and if they keep going, I just think we need as a society become more understanding and not let the stigma just dictate how we feel about people in addiction, like I once felt in my life. So just a few pointers. We got to teach about the barriers associated with recovery. We got to define the recovery process. This is for the employers. And we got to address and listen to the employers' concerns about them giving people second chances. We got to get over that discrimination stigma. And we got to figure out the methodology about what works for that employer and what works for that participant. And then we got to identify the people that can and is willing and figure out where they want to go in their life, and whether it be auto mechanics or whether it be peer support specialists or culinary specialists. We've got to work with those folks to help them identify their interests. And that's all part of what art does. I will say this, I can't imagine working with anybody besides Tim Robinson because I've seen his model be so successful. And again, because he listens, and he's not against changing any part of his program. If it thinks it makes it better, or you sit down and talk to him and it's a better idea, he's all ears. And I love working with him. I love working with Art. And I am so excited about coming to Dickinson County, and I can't thank Barry and Freddie and Dan enough to bear with me, to be able to make these projects happen. And I will tell you one thing, they are bulldogs. They will not let you forget, and they will not quit working. And I've got all the admiration in the world for those folks because of persistence that they've had in trying to get these projects developed and want what's good for the people in Dickinson County. So, thank you. Again, we're here to answer any questions you may have. I'm just excited to be here, and I just want to thank you all so much for taking the time to listen. Thank you.
Okay, so now what we would like to do is we have our folks from ARC. Greg, come on up. And this is going to be your opportunity to ask those burning questions. We know and recognize that with any project like this, there are going to be a lot of questions, concerns perhaps, and the goal today is to be able to address any of those things that you may like to know. So we do have one individual on the stage. If we could get Amanda to introduce herself so that you all know her.
Hi guys, my name is Amanda Little and I'm the Director of Nursing for ARC. I've worked here for about 3 years and we currently employ over 100 nurses, and we also have the CNA program, so once those clients finish that program, they'll also be employed with us. So we have medical has a large part in ARC.
So Amanda, I know that one of the questions that is going to come up is, does ARC utilize MAT? I mean, if you could describe what that is and what your philosophy and your policies are regarding MAT.
Okay, so every client gets individualized medical care. MAT is medication assisted treatment. So currently in ARC, we have 58% of our clients who are receiving some sort of MAT, is what we call it. So there's different forms. There is one form is called naltrexone. It is a opioid blocker and alcohol block, like it works in your receptors so that you're not craving alcohol or opiates, and it's a pill that they take daily. So if they decide that they want to move on, the next step is Vivitrol. And Vivitrol is a shot that is a monthly injection that does the same thing. It blocks those receptors. It is mainly used for opiates, which would be your fentanyl, heroin, the Oxycontin that they talk about, those sort of things. It blocks that, and we have a lot of success with that. We also offer Suboxone. Some of our clients come in and they don't want to stay on it long term. So we offer like a 7, 14, 21 day taper. Like I said, each thing is individualized, so it just depends on the client and kind of what they want out of treatment. We also offer the maintenance Suboxone if that is something that they want to continue on and they've been unsuccessful without it in the past. A lot of people have opinions about Suboxone, like thinking that they don't want, we hear a lot of things like it's just trading one drug for another drug. And as that might be true, Suboxone is it is given from a pharmacy. It's not something that's made in someone's home. It's not something that might be laced with something else. it is very, it's very beneficial to them, and it's a safe medication. It actually has an opioid, or like, just like Narcan, it has some of that in it so that, they can't get high from it. We also offer Sublocade, and it is an injection that's kind of like Suboxone, but it is a monthly shot. A lot of outpatient places utilize this to cut down on diversion. Because it's just one shot monthly, and it's not like giving pills out to where you have people selling them on the streets. A lot of people have been very successful with that also. So, it is individualized. It's kind of up to the client. They each meet with medical and discuss their goals, and it works pretty well.
Does anybody from the audience have any questions? If not, I can keep asking my questions.
Can I add to that on the Suboxone?
Of course, absolutely.
I understand there's a lot of controversy about Suboxone, but we have had a tremendous amount of success with the Suboxone taper, like Amanda talked about. When someone comes in and I don't know if anyone's ever seen someone in acute withdrawal from opioids, but it's a very, I don't have a history of addiction, but seeing that is very difficult. And so when someone comes in and they want to get help and they want to get sober and they want to stop living that life, and then they come in and are having those extremely painful symptoms, a lot of times the first thing they want to do is just leave. Imagine how you feel after you make a New Year's resolution if you're going to go exercise every day and you feel like, well, I'm just not going to do it today. Well, this is like 10,000 times worse. And so we can use that Suboxone taper many times. They call it white knuckling it, to come into treatment and just, I'm going to go through these 5 to 7 days of horrible withdrawals and all the horrible physical pain that you're going through, or we can start on that Suboxone and control those withdrawal symptoms and step them back down to a period where they're actually completely abstinent. We're using Vivitrol, which is a once-a-month injection that just eliminates any of the cravings. So we do know there's some controversy with that, but we've been very successful.
Yes, we have. And I haven't been in addiction either. However, we have seen a lot, what he's describing with the withdrawals. If you've ever saw or ever had the flu, it's like a very, very extreme case of the flu. They're very sick, and this does, it does help that for them. Uh-huh.
Suboxone is a wonderful drug. It saves a lot of lives if it's taken properly, and I think that people don't know how to take it properly. They don't know how to take it properly and learn how to take it in the right way and live life and prosper and grow. You can be in recovery and be on maintenance meds, but they need to be taught how to take it the right way. And I think being in treatment is a good way for you to learn. If I take it like I'm supposed to, I can grow and prosper and do well.
And I do agree with that. That's a lot of the things that, that's some of the things that medical does. We provide education on those sort of things. And as far, one of our main jobs is to provide education to our clients, because it's very simple things that we would take for granted, or I would take for granted. But if you have a lot of homeless people in your facility, they haven't been as simple as brushing their teeth. They've not, they've kind of lost all those very basic things that we do every day, and that is a huge part of medical, is education. And the education with the Suboxone and how to use it properly, like those sort of things happen daily. They get nursing education daily on something in there, something that is going on.
Yeah, and it's medication-assisted treatment, and so I think that's very important. Having the medication without the treatment is not going to benefit anyone. And I have went through detox twice in my life, and both times I've had to be hospitalized due to the severity of the detox that I was experiencing. So being able to have some type of medication to help someone while they're going through that is vital to their health, to be able to help them.
It also keeps a lot of people, instead of them just saying, well, forget this, I don't want to feel this way, I just want to go back and use. It does keep them there, which keeps them safe and keeps them alive another day.
Yeah, to your point, I think that there are people who are using Suboxone inappropriately, and that does give it a bad name. There's providers who are, almost, Suboxone, they're just passing out every day. But to Vanessa's point, Suboxone plus treatment, and we really want to treat the underlying behaviors that lead to addiction, the impulsivity, most folks who are experiencing some type of addiction have some type of underlying trauma. That's just the reality. And so, we pair that the clinical services with the peer support and help those folks, address that trauma. And that's a big part of, Suboxone alone is not, it might be a harm reduction thing, but that's not what we're talking about. What we do at ARC, it's part of treatment. It's part of the treatment protocols.
Almost all of I know there was some percentage earlier, I don't remember what it was, but I think that was severe mental illness. But as far as mental illness, almost every one of our clients has something. As we all know, addiction usually, starts by someone covering up their mental illness or trying to fix trauma or trying to fix things on their own. So this provides, all of our clients, if the client has a psych issue, they do see a psych provider within 72 hours of being in our facility. So that also is a huge, help to their treatment.
Yes.
Are you all going to be Medicaid billable, working through the DMS arts program for your services?
She's asking about Virginia
We
Medicaid.
will be taking Virginia Medicaid. Yeah, I'm not sure about the second part of that question, but yes, we will. And all private insurances, we will have a private pay option, but the majority of our clients are on Medicaid in Kentucky, and I don't see that to be anything different than what we're going to probably see in this part of Virginia.
I think that Sheriff Sines may have touched on it a little bit earlier, but can you talk a little bit about the admissions process as it would relate to justice-involved individuals and related to the transportation piece of the treatment? Because just looking through the room, I think that there would probably be some interest in how that process would work in Virginia, and any of you can correct me if I'm wrong. Currently, in order to get someone transportation, they have to be involuntarily committed. Is that correct? For transportation through the Sheriff's Department. ARC will not be an involuntary treatment. It will be voluntary only. So what is your solution to try to help negate some of those challenges?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. We have a robust transportation department. Right now we have 19 transporters who are on the road 7 days a week who are going to pick people up and bring them to treatment. So that was our solution for that. It actually started during COVID, and we were trying to keep COVID out of our facilities, and we really didn't want the mom and the 3 cousins all bringing the client to the facility. So I tried to keep a minimal amount of people coming as we possibly could, but it has turned into something that has been so beneficial to our clients, to the communities, to our law enforcement, to everyone. And so all they have to do is just call our intake line, and the intake department will set up transportation for them, and we will have a transporter to go out and pick them up, oftentimes same day, depending on what the transportation schedules look like. We also have a team of community liaisons all across Kentucky. We'll be building that here in Virginia also. And they also will do transportation. Like if the transportation team is already booked out for that day, and they have someone who needs to come on into treatment today, possibly they're homeless, or maybe they just got, the judge just allowed them to have treatment, because our liaisons are sitting in the courts, and they are actually taking people straight from courts straight into our treatment facilities. And so we will make sure that, the state of Kentucky is pretty big. So we had last year we transported clients from 119 out of 120 counties in Kentucky, and so I'm certain that we'll probably see those stats as we grow here in Virginia too. But that was a huge barrier for people getting treatment, and that's a barrier that we found a solution for.
Dana, can I follow up just briefly on that? And just to clarify, if there is a temporary detention order that is issued out of your facility, I'm not sure if it's the same thing as Kentucky. We call it temporary detention order in Virginia. That requires a patient to be transported to the other side of the state. We're in Southwest Virginia. Sometimes it's an 8-hour trip. Sometimes it's an overnight trip. If you have a patient that is wants involuntary treatment, or voluntary treatment, will ARC provide that transportation for them to or from the facility?
So we, not for involuntary, but as long as it's voluntary treatment, yes. We will set up transportation, and that will be something that law enforcement, as long as we're allowed to do that, pending law enforcement's approval, as long as we're allowed to do that, yes, we will definitely come and get them and cut down on the trips you guys have to do.
I believe, if I may, the kind of the crux of the issue is creating a diversion prior to a TDO being issued if someone is willing to go to treatment. So that will be something that I think that the community liaisons will work with the magistrate and the court system to try, if at all possible, to avoid it even getting to that point. But if a TDO is issued, I do believe that then that has to be released